There's a big difference between being alone and being lonely, but most people confuse the two. On the surface, they might look the same. No one around you, silence filling the room, time spent with just yourself. But inside, they couldn't feel more different. Being alone is a physical state. It just means you're not with other people. It can actually feel freeing, spacious, even grounding. But loneliness, that's a psychological and emotional state. It's not about whether you're surrounded by people or not. You can feel lonely in a crowded room, at a family dinner, or even next to someone you love. Loneliness is the sense of disconnection, of not being understood, of feeling unseen or unimportant. The problem is, a lot of us run from being alone because we assume it will lead to loneliness. We fill every quiet moment with noise, every empty space with distraction, because we don't want to face ourselves. But the truth is, being alone doesn't cause loneliness. What causes loneliness is the absence of connection. Connection to others, yes, but also connection to ourselves. Psychologists have studied this for years. Humans are social creatures. Our brains are wired for connection. That's why loneliness feels painful. It's a signal, just like hunger or thirst, that we're missing something we fundamentally need. But being alone doesn't automatically mean that need isn't being met. In fact, some of the most content people are those who have learned how to be deeply comfortable in their own company. They don't confuse solitude with isolation. Think about it. When you're alone and at peace, you're not desperate for someone else to fill the silence. You're not constantly searching for validation or distraction. You can sit with yourself and actually feel whole. That's being alone. That's solitude. It's intentional and it's powerful. It gives you space to hear your own thoughts, to reflect, to rest, to create. Loneliness, on the other hand, often comes from a place of lack. It's not always about how many people are in your life. It's about how connected you feel to them. You might have dozens of friends, hundreds of online followers, or even a partner, but if you don't feel seen or truly known, you'll still feel lonely. That's why loneliness is often described as being invisible. You're physically present, but emotionally, you feel erased. And here's the twist. Sometimes the fear of loneliness keeps people stuck in relationships, friendships, or social groups that don't actually nourish them. They'd rather cling to shallow connections than risk being alone. But what they don't realize is that this only deepens the loneliness, because nothing feels emptier than being with people who don't make you feel understood. The real challenge is this: learning to be alone without being lonely. And the way you do that is by building connection with yourself first. When you know who you are, what you care about, what gives your life meaning, you stop seeing solitude as a void. You start seeing it as a resource. You can use that time to recharge, to think, to create, to just exist without pressure. In fact, some of the most transformative moments in people's lives come from being alone. Long walks, journaling, traveling solo, or simply sitting in stillness. Those moments strip away the noise and let you confront yourself honestly. And in that confrontation, you often find that what you feared wasn't solitude. It was facing parts of yourself you'd been avoiding. Here's the paradox. The better you get at being alone, the less lonely you actually feel. Because when you're comfortable in your own company, you're not desperate for external validation. You're able to choose relationships out of genuine connection, not fear of emptiness. You stop clinging to people who drain you because you know solitude is better than shallow company. So maybe the question isn't, how do I avoid being alone? Maybe the real question is, how do I make peace with it? Because when you stop running from solitude, you'll start realizing it's not your enemy. Loneliness hurts because it's a lack of connection. Solitude heals because it gives you space to reconnect with yourself, with your values, with the world around you. The difference between being alone and being lonely is the difference between emptiness and presence. One feels like a void, the other feels like a sanctuary. And learning to tell the difference might just change the way you experience not only yourself, but also the relationships you choose to keep.